Hey folks, Julian here with some quick show notes before we get started with this Legend of Zelda spoiler cast. We recorded this before E3, and it's now a couple weeks after E3, but what ended up happening is we were supposed to record an episode like the week after E3, and then I was not feeling well, so we couldn't record, but we had this Zelda special in the hopper. So this is actually coming out when our normal episode would be coming out, and I apologize for that. We will have a all-consumption junction episode of Nerds Without Pants coming out 2 weeks after this, and then after that will be our regular show format. So hold on to your Stage Select and Chrono Crossing picks for now. We'll get to those in a couple episodes, and then things should return to normal. Also in this episode, we're using the Skype audio, and for whatever reason, Angelo's mic was cutting out at certain points, and I tried my best to amplify, but for some reason, and in one particular story, he was talking about Satoru Iwata, and also the name Satori. And for whatever reason, every time Angelo said Satoru or Satori, his mic would just go really quiet, and I amplified as best I could, but it's probably going to sound bad. And if you don't understand what he's saying still, that's what he's talking about. It'll make sense when you get to the story. Anyway, enjoy the episode, and we'll get into it. Thanks. This week on a special episode of Nerds Without Pants. Hopefully the durability of my microphone works long enough to get through this podcast. Welcome to a special edition of Nerds Without Pants. We cover everything while bearing it all. I am Julian, and I'm joined as always by Angelo.
I'm currently more worried about your ability to speak, sir.
I'll fix it in post. They won't know that.
That's true.
And we're joined by fellow Pixelbit writer, Casey.
It's dangerous to go alone. So you brought me.
Yes.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah, and Patrick isn't here because we're here to spoil the ever-loving crap out of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And as big of a Zelda fan as Patrick is, he's only played the first, hour of the game multiple times at that Nintendo Switch event that he won't shut up about. So
I gotta ask real quick, Casey, how long were you sitting on that intro? Because you were sitting there with that smug look on your face like, I got this thing cocked and loaded, man. We're good.
I came out with it 1 minute ago.
Oh, did you really?
Oh, not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad at all.
So I think we have a good group here as far as opinions go. Casey reviewed the game for Pixelbin, gave it a glowing 5-star review. Angelo, I would say, is probably a little bit more moderate. And then, while I really enjoyed the game and I think it's great, I'm probably the most critical of it of the three of us. So I think between the three of us, we've kind of got all the bases covered. I would definitely not say that it's a bad game by any stretch, or, say that it deserves a middling review or anything like that. But I had enough issues with this game that kept me from wholeheartedly enjoying it, as much as some people. But Angelo, I think you're a good place to start because your first appearance on Nerds Without Pants was the episode entitled Nintendo Propaganda. And I want to say that's the one where you kind of detailed what you wanted from a Zelda game. And they kind of did it, didn't they?
They did exactly what I asked them to do. I said I want the Zelda-style arcade-ish combat, but I want an open world like an Elder Scrolls game, and they did it. They hit all these caves everywhere with little puzzles to solve in them. It was amazing. I'm like Psychic or something.
Yeah, and it's funny because the whole extra loot and armor and stuff. I've been wanting that in Zelda for years, and people would always say, oh no, Link's gotta look like Link. He's gotta have the green outfit on and blah, blah, blah. And it's it looks so natural. It looks so good because, when you put Nintendo on the task of, making armor designs, hey, guess what? It looks really fantastic. So, every piece of gear that you get for Link just looks great. It fits him. It fits the character. I do think that he should probably end up in the green tunic by the end of the game, or some sort of variation of it. But I'm not complaining about that by any means. I really enjoyed seeing a different look for the character after all these years.
Well, the story, and we can just get right into it. I mean, it's a spoiler cast. The story does give you that special tunic that is part of your sort of equipment as being part of the princess's guard. But it's blue. It's not green.
Right.
And I almost wondered if, so I didn't do anything with it. You can go to fairy fountains and level up your equipment, and I've been meaning to ask you if you did that, because that might have been the problem with you getting wrecked every time you looked at something the wrong way. We can bookmark that.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if maybe there is something if you level that up enough. Maybe it becomes green or something, but none of the other outfits really change.
Actually, if you do all 120 shrines, you get the green tunic and Link's hat and tights.
Oh.
And, and another way to get it is if you have amiibos.
Yeah, I heard that you get it with amiibos. Actually, when I was out in California doing the Geek Box, Justin Haywald had his Switch there, and he had the green tunic because he had gotten it from an amiibo. But the stats were crap on it, like it's very much just like, hey, look, here's Link the way that you remember him. But for me, I liked the fact that like his default outfit was something very different. I loved putting him in the Hylian armor. Like I thought that, like I was like, yeah, this is how I've always wanted my Link to look. Like I always envisioned this Zelda where you start off in the green tunic, but then like by the end of the game, you're wearing some sort of like chainmail over the green tunic, and you've got like a helmet. But maybe like there's a design on it or something that kind of recalls the little, pointy hat, just to kind of remind you of where you've been, but also look at how far you've come. And I mean, it's so cool. I love progression. I love to feel like I'm making progress, either, even if it's just like numbers going up. Like obviously we still have the heart system. We don't level up or anything in Breath of the Wild, but at least I've got this new gear. I've got newer and better weapons as you progress through the game. We can talk about the degradation system later because I've got a lot of things to say about it. But at least, you get to a point later on where your weapons aren't breaking after 2 or 3 hits. They're breaking after, 15 or 20. And that's definitely more tolerable. I would say that's where it should have started. But
part of that is getting good too. Like your weapons degrade faster if you are doing stupid things with them, like hitting an enemy when it has its shield up, or, I don't know, using a sword to take down a tree. Well, can you do that? Sure. Is it a good idea? And that's kind of the game telling you that, in a way. It's like, yeah, you can do this, but it's going to break after you take down 2 trees. So.
Angelo Grant just told the host of the show to get good. That just happened.
Okay, no. But also, maybe.
I mean, like I noticed that like some of their defensive moves it wouldn't be until you were already like mid swing, and then they would put their shield up and stuff. So it's like, well, that happens.
Well, some of that is when you get certain weapons, like when you get the swords or things that have the elemental properties, so you can freeze them or electrocute them or light them on freaking fire, which I will do as often as humanly possible. That will cause them to be in a vulnerable state for longer. So what I found myself doing is I would carry around an electrical weapon, because those are phenomenal. There are some that are immune to it, but most of them aren't. And when you do that, they get stunned, but they also drop their equipment. And one of the funniest things in this game is that if you get an enemy to drop their equipment and you go pick it up, they'll be more concerned with the fact that you just picked up their equipment than they will be about attacking you. And they will stand there and scream and like stomp their foot for a minute.
Oh, really?
That's kind of fun. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But you can use that to steal the shield. So then you never have to worry about that again. Now you have no shield.
And like, just the whole taking an enemy's weapon thing, it just like reminds me of Wind Waker, and I just remember when I was playing that game, I was thinking, this is a cool system, but there's so much more they can do with this. And this game is basically all the stuff they could do with it.
I mean, there were times where combat was like, I knock this guy down, and I take his spear, and there's a guy coming behind me, and I hit him in the skull with it, and then draw another weapon, and then take care of the guy that's in front of me. Then this guy's coming back, so I freeze him. It was amazing sometimes. When the combat really was firing on all cylinders, it was a phenomenal system.
Okay, see, and for me, the combat never fired on all cylinders. Usually it was firing on like one or two of them. And that's the thing is that like, I love like 9/10 of the changes that they made to Zelda. I think they're fantastic. Like, I think the open world approach is the best that I've seen, full stop. You know, I mentioned this on the regular show, but like, it's the best I've seen, you know, as far as like handling the open world structure. But the combat is the same combat that it's been since Ocarina of Time, and I was like, that's the part where I really wish that they had gone to a deeper system, you know, like a light and heavy attack type thing. A dodge roll. Link's, at least in my opinion, like his defensive capabilities are woefully lacking. Like his little sidestep, that never worked for me. Like every once in a while I would get that flurry thing going, but most of the time I was just leaving myself wide open to an attack, where I was like, if this was like Dark Souls, I could just like, I would be wrecking house right now. I've said it on the regular show, but like I found the challenge to not be because the enemies were smart, but because they don't do so much damage. And at least initially, like, also take very little damage. So it just felt like these number values were off for me. And I was like, eventually I found different ways to overcome them. Not the way that you guys are talking about. And I found this to be a failing on my part with video games, is that I'm not one of those people who does a lot of experimentation. I play very much within the lines. So unless the game outright tells me that I can do this stuff, I'm probably not going to do it. So there's very little of that discovery. And I know that that's in there, but you can also just kind of brute force it, and that's what I ended up doing. And I didn't have a good time with it.
I found the ability to throw weapons was a big thing. I ended up using that a lot.
I never threw my weapons.
Oh.
See, if I had like a slot or two open, I'd just pick up an enemy's weapon, switch that, do a couple hits, then chuck it at another enemy, and repeat all over again.
And there is something so satisfying about making one of your enemies eat his own weapon with his face. It's just, here, this spear you were stabbing me with? Well, I'm going to break it right over your head. It's going to be great. And the shield parry. I used that a ton. And that's like a Dark Souls thing, too. Like, I used to love that. They called it the parry and riposte in Dark Souls, but it's the same thing. You time the shield block correctly, and then the enemy is stunned for a second, you can get like a combo in on it.
I've never been good at parrying systems in any video game, and it really frustrates me. Like God of War, Dark Souls, like there's a ton of them. Like there was kind of that parry system in Onimusha, where if you do it right, you parry one attack, and then you can kill every enemy on the screen by tapping the button. I would do that on accident, like maybe once in an entire playthrough, and then never on purpose. For some reason, and this, I mean, it's not an age thing, because this has been my problem since I was in my 20s. Like, I just do not have the reflexes for it.
See, I used to be terrible at parrying, then I played Dark Souls, and it's like, I just kind of had to force myself to be good at parrying, and that just, like, transferred over to every other game.
Yeah. The consequences for screwing that up in Dark Souls are more severe. If you screw up a parry in Dark Souls, you are taking the full blunt of an enemy's hit, and that is at least half of your health.
At the same time, there are just so many enemies in Dark Souls that are, like, unmanageable unless you can parry. So you kind of have to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that the enemies in Zelda are also hitting you for like half of your life bar. And Angelo, I did upgrade most of my armor at least twice. And I really feel that like a lot of those stats don't matter. You know, like other than the weather stuff, like the sneaking stuff. On that mandatory stealth mission, none of that did a lick of good. Like getting through that stuff was pretty much like half luck and half random, and nothing that had to do with my what I ate or what I was equipped with or anything like that. Like it just didn't seem to matter. So I like, as much as I like the gear system, other than like obviously like swimming faster, you know, that I could tell a difference. But like when I would put like the Hylian armor on, like I wasn't necessarily noticing that I was taking less damage. I just thought I looked cooler. I was like, okay, well this is my coolest looking armor, so I'm gonna wear this for most of the time, but it's not really doing much for me.
Well, speaking of the swimming armor, can we agree that it was just so awesome that you can use that to swim up waterfalls?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was cool.
Especially like the dungeon mini game you have to do to get into that dungeon, where you're firing all those arrows, and then you have to jump to one of them, climb up the waterfall, and then shoot that arrow. I just thought it was cool how they gave you all those mini games to get into a dungeon, so it just felt like you haven't just discovered the dungeon, you earned your chance to get in there. You had to earn it.
Yeah. And a lot of those, when you got in the dungeon and you reach the guy at the end, he just literally says, "Hey, getting here was challenge enough. Just take this thing." You know.
You mean for like the shrines or
right?
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of the shrines had quests involved. And some of them I discovered just by wandering around the world. Like there was one where there were, what are those big dumb giants that you have to kill with one eye in the middle?
Yeah. Oh, the Hinoxes?
The Hinoxes. So there's one where there's a series of 3 of them and they get harder and harder.
Oh,
And you have like each of them gives you kind of like, I forget what the item is, but you have to place them in these stone circles or something.
The way I discovered this whole thing was there was a Hinox and it had one of those magic balls that it was holding. And, you know, if you played the game, you've seen these things. They actually make kind of like a chimey noise when they roll around. They're pretty neat. And I killed him, and I took the ball, and I'm like, well, there's the hole the ball goes in. Because every time you get one of these, there's a hole you put in, and I couldn't find it. So I walked around for a bit, and I was like, well, I'm just going to mark this place on my map and keep going. And there was an obvious path there, and I followed the obvious path. And there's another Hinox with a ball. I'm like, well, you got to die. So that happened. And then I grabbed his ball, and I just realized how weird this is starting to sound.
Phrasing?
And I started looking for the hole to put that in.
Phrasing?
Just keep going.
Weird. Okay. We passed the point of no return with this one. Still didn't find anything. Found another path. Found another Hinox. Same thing again. And then I'm like, this is the weirdest thing ever. So I'm looking at my map, and I'm like, wait. These are all in like kind of a circle, and I kind of like mentally drew a line to the middle of the circle, put a marker there, went there. Sure enough, there's 3 holes. I'm like, oh, felt so good. It was one of those things. I
found the holes first, and then like found the Hinoxes from there.
Supposed to do.
Yeah, like, but I feel like your way is better because like you had that discovery.
Right. If you're meant to find the holes first, because there's a little plaque that tells you some sort of cryptic thing about how you're supposed to open it, and then, you know, you eventually find one of the Hinoxes, kill it.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's so great about that game is the way, like, the sense of discovery, and whenever you look at something that just seems like a little out of place, if you go look closer, you realize that no, it's exactly in place, and there's something there. It might just be a Korok seed, or the entrance to a shrine or something, but there's going to be something there. And that sense of discovery is so cool, and like the way that, like, you just feel, it reminded me of like the NES days, like really like Nintendo Power days, Angelo, where like there would be like those like, it was like deciphering runes, right, with your friends at school, where you were like, oh yeah, I heard that if you kneel at this wall for 3 seconds, this whirlwind takes you to the dungeon. You know, like stuff like that, where it's like, I kind of am jealous of kids who get to play this game, because it's the same thing where it's like, oh, I wanted to say to you, like, while, you know, I haven't had a chance to, but like, oh, did you see the electric dragon in the sky? Or did you see like the one that's like all corrupted by Ganon gunk and you have to like free it? Like, you know, I just would happen on this stuff, and it was like the coolest stuff in the game, and, you know, it's not important to the overall story. It's not marked on your map or anything. It's just, I would pick a direction and go, and I was always rewarded with something, and I loved that.
Yeah. Or, gosh, I could think of a million of those. Like, I was wandering around one time, and there was a little island, right? And I'm just walking around the island randomly. There's a pile of bones in the middle of the island. I'm like, well, that's interesting. I haven't seen one of those before, but I kind of look around, set some bombs on it, did a couple things, nothing happened. Walked away. Came back later on at night and ran into a bear. And by the way, bears are hella scary at night. Like, I don't know how they did, like, the facial stuff, but they almost have this sick grin and bright green eyes, and it's like, you are a nightmare creature.
I never saw a bear in that game.
Go find a bear, and then go find it again at night, and it is freaky. As I'm dealing with this bear, I turn around, and those bones came to life, and that wants to murder me too. And I'm getting off this island so quick. So, that was amazing, though. Like, I marked that island on my map, and I was like, I need to check that out later when I'm not going to get completely annihilated by all this stuff. Yeah. And I did. I came back and murdered a bear. So
my favorite of those moments was that one mountain, like the Arctic mountain. And like I was just playing it with my buddy, and like we just see this giant mountain, we're just going, yes, there has to be something cool up there. And just getting up there just took so long because I didn't have Rialto's, what's it called? The
Raleigh's
super
Gale.
high Rialto's Gale, yeah, that's what it is. So I didn't have that charged. So I had to just do it the old fashioned way by regular climbing, and then we get there and we just see this enormous dragon up there.
Yep.
And it's just like, oh my god! And we're just like trying to figure out, what do we do? Like, it's not sleeping, it's not attacking us. Are we supposed to wake it up? Are we just supposed to talk to it? And then like, the thing I ended up loving is it doesn't end up attacking you, but you still have to fight it.
Right.
Like, it just starts flying around and you have to take out all this corruption stuff. And I just thought that, like, this is putting in more effort to just one single shrine than so many games put into their big missions.
Also, like, the game doesn't use music a whole lot, right? It doesn't. It uses very subtle sound effects. We have to talk about music. Hi, this is me. But the times when the music sticks out, like, they just know, there's a couple little notes here and there, but, like, I can remember the times when the music just, like, jumped out and slapped me in the face. And one of them was when we were at the Temple of Time, and every once in a while it plays just the subtlest whisper of the Temple of Time music, and then it just blows away on the wind. I'm like, that was so cool! Or you're riding the horse around, and it does the same thing. Like, it's this little, like, dancey piano thing starts, and it's like, yeah, I'm riding a horse, and this is almost going with the canter of the horse as it's galloping. And then it starts to play the Legend of Zelda theme, very slowly, and then it stops. And I'm like, yeah, that's how you do this. But when you're in that particular situation, you're climbing this mountain, and the minute I knew something was up was because the music started to play, and it was creepy freaking music. Like, wow, this is really, really messed up music. And you get there, and you see that, the dragon scenario that we talked about. And the other time that played, so I gotta tell you about this too. This is something that happened recently. I was out exploring at night, and I saw what I thought was an aurora borealis out in the distance. I was like, oh, that's pretty. They did that. And then a few nights later, I saw it again, but from a different angle. I'm like, wait, no, that is on a very specific mountain. I need to mark that. I marked it. And I went over there, and I'm exploring this particular mountain because the marking was a little off. And I found this beautiful little clearing with this pond and this big pink tree and these rose petals everywhere. And I'm like, this is something. I don't know what this is, but this is something. So I definitely marked that spot on my map, and I went wandering around. And I came back a few times at different times to see what was going on, and nothing was ever going on there. And then one time at night, I saw that glowing again. And I noticed there was a shrine near it, and I teleported to the spot, and I walked over to the glowing, and it was the spot I'd marked on my map. And I saw all of these little blue, rabbity-looking things all over the place, and it played the creepy music. In the middle was this big blue and white glowing horse with weird-looking ears, like these, almost like ferns sticking out of its head. And I'm like, I don't know what to do here, but I'm meant to do something. And I literally had 2 seconds left of nighttime, and I kind of tried to sneak in there and see what I could do, and it all disappeared. Oh my gosh, there's something happening here, right? And it was also playing that really messed up music again. So I'm wandering around, and this happens at random. So every night I'm kind of like looking off at that mountain range to see if it starts to glow again. It's not glowing, it's not glowing, it's not glowing. And then I kind of forgot about it and was off doing something. And I just happened to turn around and be like, he's here. Off I go. So I go over there, and I mean, this happened twice. The first time I tried to catch it again, and it ran off, and I didn't get it. And the second time, I was so careful. It took my time. I had all the sneaking gear, like, maxed out. I had eaten something to boost my stealth even more. I snuck up on this thing and grabbed it, and off we rode. And I was like, I caught this thing. What is this thing? So I started to kind of look around it, and I'm like, okay, tail's kind of, we got a horse behind, right? Because that's all I'm seeing, because I'm riding on it. And I'm panning around it, and I'm like, his hooves are strange. And then I got to its face, and I'm like, what the hell is this thing? It had 2 human faces sort of one on each side of its head coming together with like 4 red eyes, and they blinked at like almost random times but together. So one face would blink and it would be staggered, and the other face would blink and it would be staggered, and I'm like, what am I on? What am I doing with my life? Why did I do this? Its stats are amazing. Like it has fastest speed, fastest everything, and when you make it sprint, it just immediately regenerates. So you can have it sprint for forever. Like, we're taking this thing to the stable. This is a long story, and I'm real sorry.
No, this is great.
To the stable. And the guy's like, okay, so you'd like to register a... What is that? Is that the mountain? No, you did not get that thing out of here. You're trying to get us all cursed? And I'm like, this is intense. So I took it. And I went off into, like, onto a path, and I'm like, well, I haven't taken a picture of this yet, because there's this other mechanic in the game where you take pictures of things and you document them. So I'm like, let me take a couple of pictures of this. So I got off of it, and I took a picture, and I took another picture, and then I went into the book and read the description. And I wish I had it with me right now. I wish I'd planned on this. But I went on this whole thing, like, this is the Lord of the Mountain. Long ago, legends say it was a wise sage, and, you know, and that sage lives on as Lord of the Mountain. And, you know, most people call it Lord of the Mountain, but some call it by its name, the Tor. And I was like, wait a minute. That's a Japanese thing, isn't it? Take the last vowel of Satoru, and you change it to an I, and it's Satori. And it says, like, it keeps watching over us for, like, the rest of the time. And I was like, it's a tribute to Iwata, isn't it? I was like, that's amazing. And it came from the Satori Mountains. And I actually looked up the word Satori just to make sure. And the difference is one vowel. Instead of ending in an O, it ends in an I. But they use the word Satori because it means peace and tranquility. It's like a Buddhist. I was like, this is amazing. And then I found that this is another thing where I found the thing out of order. And one time I was near a stable and I talked to a guy. And this guy was wearing glasses. There's not many people in Zelda wearing glasses, right? Mm-hmm. And I talked to him, and he said, oh, man, I heard about this creature called Lord of the Mountain. It lives out there somewhere. And I'm like, yeah, I found it. And then I kind of looked at him again. They were Iwata's glasses. And I was like, this is incredible. I love this game. So that was like maybe one of the coolest things I discovered in that game, and the way I discovered it.
And there's just so many people who just miss that, but still have this amazing experience. Like, it's just a game where you really do get out of it what you put into it, but in a good way, where it's not like you have to work to get what you want. You're having fun doing it the whole time, but just the more you invest in this game, the more you're getting out of it.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, like, the way the game is structured and everything, like, part of that story felt like it could have just been a fever dream, and I, like, you know, the game is so chock full of mystery and stuff like that, like, you could tell me pretty much whatever, and then I could say, oh, well, I don't like, sure, that's in the game. You know, I mean, I had heard that they had done a tribute to Iwata. I knew about the NPC, but I didn't know anything about that horse creature. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And you did, like, you were texting me about stuff, and I'm like, the hell are you talking about? Because you found, like, some sort of... Yeah. Like, tell me about Terra Town.
Okay, so here's a wild ride. There's a town that you... And keep in mind, you could skip this whole thing if you wanted to. And we are about to go on a journey. So there's a town you can wander into, and it's not the main town. It's not Kakariko Village. It's the other bigger one. There's 2 big towns, and there's a couple other smaller ones, and then there's the main villages you have to go to as part of the quest for the guardian creatures or whatever they are. When you're in this other big town, you can go over to a house, and there's people standing around it beating on it with sledgehammers. And if you talk to them, you're like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, talk to the boss. So you talk to this guy, and he is... Okay. So, he is effeminate. And I mean up to 11 effeminate, okay? And the game doesn't treat him any differently than it treats anybody else. Boy, oh boy, is he on fire. So, you talk to this guy, and he's like, oh, we're part of this construction company. This house has been abandoned forever, so we're going to tear it down. Unless you want it. I mean, if you want it, we'll sell it to you. And you can buy the house. right? And it costs a lot of money. So if you have the money, you buy the house. Yeah, it was okay. And they start hanging out on your lawn. I'm kind of looking at it, I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go into my house, I'm looking around, I'm like, well, I don't know why I did this, because it's an empty house and there's nothing here. I go out and talk to him, he goes, hey, we can put some stuff in your house. Yeah, he goes, yeah, we'll build things for you. So you can build a sign with your name on it, you can have them make you a nice front lawn, plant some trees. In the inside of the house, and this is interesting, you can have them build 3 stands, 3 each for 3 for swords, 3 for bows, and 3 for shields. So it gives you an extra storage space to store even more weapons if you want, which is pretty cool. You can have him build you a bed. You can have him build furnishings and hang up lights. And if you have him build you a bed, you can use it. You have to pay him to put a door on the building. Okay? When you have done literally every single thing you can do to that house, they're still hanging out in your lawn. And if you talk to them, they'll just tell you various things. But if you talk to one in particular worker, they'll be like, oh, hey, my boss told me, he wants me to go try and start up another company somewhere. He says, I'm going to go wander off and do that. Now, mind you, this is hours and hours and hours of doing this stuff. And you could stop. Like, at any point, you could have just been like, I'm done with this. We're good. I don't need any of this other stuff. I kind of wanted to see what happened. And he walks off, and the game plays this oddly, melodramatic music as he's walking off into the sunset. And I'm like, that means something. And you have no idea what this means. And then later on, as you're exploring the map, you may or may not run into him on a little island in the upper right-hand corner of the map. And he talks, and he's sitting there, with a pickaxe, chiseling away at all these rocks that are on this island. And you talk to him, and he goes, oh, yeah, I'm trying to build a town. I need some lumber so I can build houses. And if you go get him enough lumber, a couple of houses will spring up. And he'll be like, well, I need somebody to run some sort of a business. So I need you to find me a Goron. But it can't just be any Goron. Because of the weird rules of this company, their last part of their name has to have son in it. That has to end with an S-O-N. People are dope. I don't know what you're doing. You're doing so many drugs over at Nintendo headquarters. But okay, fine, I'll find you a Goron with last name San. Long story short, because I could drag this out, you have to get one person from each of those 4 main villages or outside of them. The Goron was in the mines, and I think the other one, the person that you needed to recruit from I forget what the desert people are called. Was actually, yes, was in the oasis outside of the city, not in the actual city itself. So you get one of each of those, cut down, kill a bunch of trees for this guy and give him wood.
Phrasing, boom! Inappropriate.
And eventually you build an entire freaking town. And then when he's done, you find this guy a priest so he can get married. And then he marries somebody. And then it just unlocks just really good shops. You can buy a lot of really, really interesting stuff there that you can't get anywhere else in the game. Well, you can get them elsewhere in the game, but it makes it easier for you to get them here if you have the rupees. So that was cool. That was Terrytown.
Man, I found the workers on the house, and they told me to talk to their boss, and then I never talked to their boss. So, man, that you found.
How many other people do you think did that?
You just inadvertently found the second act of Breath of Fire 2 in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, all of Soul Blazer. I mean,
yeah.
Any of that stuff.
I found the guy to talk to build a house, but then I just thought, no, I'd rather spend money on arrows.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how that game's economy works, too? It's I don't really need more armor. I don't really need food. Go to an arrow shop. Here's all my money.
Make it right.
I will take all of your arrows, please.
Yeah, I went through so many arrows and was always needing more arrows. And then we had briefly talked about this, but I made the mistake of selling all of my ancient gears and stuff for the majority of the game because I needed the money. And then when I finally found the guy who can make the ancient weapons and ancient armor that is the only way that you can fight back against the frickin' Guardians, I couldn't buy any of it because I was broke. I was able to get, I think, a handful of the arrows, but that was it. And then I just had to make do with I would get the Guardian weapons off of some of the combat shrines, and then that's how I was able to breach the defenses of the castle, because those guardians don't mess around, man. And like at some point in the game, like they're just everywhere, and like the bane of my existence.
I need to tell you. Can I tell you another story about the combat shrines real quick? I swear. Then I'll let Casey talk because he's been in the corner, and I feel real bad. So the first time I stumbled onto a combat shrine, I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
Same.
And I walked into it, and it said a major test of strength.
Same.
And I didn't know what this meant. So I went in there and I fought this thing. And I fought it for days. I mean literal, in life, days. Like, and I don't mean like back to back, but I mean like I would fight it for 2 hours in one night and not kill it, but I get further. And then I would fight it like the next night and, get further. And, until I finally beat that thing. But like, we're talking about 15 minutes a pop to kill this thing. And then at the end, the only way I could kill it, because I couldn't kill it fast enough, was to do perfect reflex on its laser beam, which I had to do 2 of those in a row. And if one of them hit me, I would die instantly, because that's the kind of health I had. Basically, anything he did to me was a one-shot kill. I had to fight it flawlessly for 15 minutes. Damn it, I did it. Because I'm insane.
Yes, you are. Like, the first combat shrine I found was also a major test of strength. I fought it for like 30 seconds. I was like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here. And I just noped right out of that, and I didn't come back for hours.
Well, my mistake was I knew I wasn't supposed to be there, but after I tried it like 3 times and realized I wasn't supposed to be there, I'm like, but I'm actually doing pretty good. I'll bet I could do this. So I kept trying until I did. Because I'm nuts.
That's like me killing Psycho Mantis without switching controller ports because I didn't know that you could.
That's a great story, too. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Casey, I've been talking over you for like forever now.
Yeah, well, like I love the shrines where like getting in the shrine itself was a puzzle, not so much like that dragon that was like more of a boss thing, but like there's that one. It's just there's a shrine underneath it, but it's covered with like all this rock and stuff, and you're just wondering how to get there, and it's raining the whole time. I was playing that with my buddy, and eventually just says, "What if you're meant to get struck by lightning here?" And we just spent hours, like, just trying to prepare me so I could get, like, just take that lightning bolt without dying. And then we realized, wait, you just need to place a metal shield or sword on top of this. What is wrong with us?
Oh, man. You know what my favorite one of those was? And I discovered it early. When you climb one mountain, there is there's a shrine, one of those shrine unlock disc things on the wall of a cliff. And it's in a frozen area. And at this point in the game, I had to eat spicy food to survive in frozen areas. Like, I had one piece of gear, but it wasn't enough. I needed the double one. I couldn't just do it with a single. So I was wearing the heavy jacket and eating lots of hot peppers. So I got there and it said, there's a book in a ruined cabin next to it. And you read the book and it says basically, during a certain time of day, the shrine glows, and when the shrine glows, you have to touch it with the shadow, a shadow of cold. I'm sitting there like, and I must have tried a million different things. Like I shot it with an ice arrow when it was glowing, and you can only do this once a day. And then, it didn't work. And I was like, well, all right, I'll wait for it to try to come around again. I think it came around again, and I tried something else. And I ended up going away again. And I came back to that shrine like when I was almost done with the game. So we were talking maybe about I mean, I put over 130 hours into the game, so let's just say 70. Let's just say 70 hours, right? And I came back, and I'm looking at this stupid thing, and I'm like, I'm opening you up. And I've been thinking about it the whole time, and I looked at the ground next to it, and I realized there's water here. Wait. Shadow of Ice froze some of the water with that thing, and it made a pillar. And then I'm looking at the cliff, and there's a little beam moving, like a sundial. I'm like, oh, crap! So the sun comes up, and don't you know, like, right as it's getting close, the thing starts to glow, and I'm like, oh, I freaking did it! I freaking did it! And I'm waiting for the shadow to pass over it, and it passes over it, and the thing opens up, and I'm like, oh, I'm a genius! And I love when Zelda does that. I love when Zelda makes you feel like you're freaking brilliant.
Well, and that's
like,
one. Oh, go ahead, Casey.
It's just like so much more of that than like the past Zelda dungeons, because I feel like so many Zelda dungeons for a while have been just, they make you feel more like you did something brilliant more than actually do something brilliant. But that one, it's like you're piecing together all these clues and just letting them sink in.
Yeah.
Like it lets you, it's not just finding an eye you're supposed to shoot with an arrow. You have to like actually like really critically think all this stuff, and there's just more of it, I feel, than in a lot of the past recent Zeldas.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm happy with this one because I did all this without looking at a guide, right? Like, I figured out all of this stuff without a guide. I figured out how to make food that would fully replenish my health and give me all the bonus hearts I needed to completely tap off my life meter. I figured out all this crap, and like, the game gives you enough to set you on the right path and then makes you reason out the rest. Like, they have gotten that down to an art form. Like, and then they have mastered that art form. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying this game is perfect, right? And I'm not saying every single one of these hits that note. Man, when it hits that note, it hits it so strong.
Like, one of those shrines I loved, I just get into this room, and there's just a bunch of those glowing spheres with the holes, and like, I'm looking at the clue, and I'm thinking, this clue makes absolutely no sense. Like,
was this the star map one?
Yes.
Yes.
But no,
I love this one too.
Well, the star map one is an awesome one.
Yep.
It's a different one though.
Okay.
It's the two ones. Like,
the twin?
Yeah, the twin.
Yes.
Oh, but like, I have this good view of it. Like, they're not giving me this view unless I have a reason to. I'm just gonna take a picture of it, come back to this later, and then like, so I come back to it later, but then like, I look at the picture, I'm realizing, wait, the dungeon actually, it was glowing red when I did that. I thought maybe it just didn't save. And then I go back to the picture, I'm thinking, wait, this picture looks different than this one. Like, so I take a picture of what I see now, because, like, I just had this spark go off in my head. And then I look at the other picture, and I place all the spheres where they are in the other picture. It's like, it opens up, it's like, oh my god!
Okay.
You know what's funny?
I'm feeling better about the combat now, because I may have not figured out combat stuff, but like, as soon as Angelo talked about Shadow of Ice, I was like, oh, Ice Pillar. And then the star map one, I got that on my first try. And the twin one, I was like, oh yeah, let me take a picture of this and then go in the other one and solve it. And like, it was easy peasy and did it. And so I'm feeling a little bit, vindicated now, because I may be like not good with the combat, but at least I was good with the puzzles.
The star map one I had to chew on for about 5 minutes. The twin one, so here's a funny story. I got to the twin ones before I had the ability in game to take pictures.
Oh, I just did it with my phone.
That's what I did too. That's what I was going to say. So I went to the one, and I was like, I don't know what this is about. And I went to the other one, and then I figured out what it was about. As soon as I went to the other one, I'm like, oh, I got to write all this. Wait! Click. Done.
See, I was playing it on the Switch, and they just have a button right on there you can press, and you get a picture, and you can just go to that.
Nice.
Yeah, I have it on Wii U.
Yeah, you guys haven't picked up one of those yet, but I was glad I got a Switch, because I was just so addicted to this game when it came out, and I'd be like, I kind of want to watch something on TV, but I still want to play Zelda while I'm watching it. So I just like put it out of the dock, picked it up, turned on the TV, and it's like, this is just so nice. And it felt like, okay, I get, like, the Switch perfectly because I do not want to put this game down. And it's just so awesome that I don't need to.
Right.
Even if I want to do something else at the same time.
Now, Casey, let me ask you, how was the Switch for doing those interminable, like, rotating shrine puzzles? Because I felt that the Wii U was, like, very imprecise with that, and they were, like, one of them in particular was, like, driving me crazy until I realized that I could just flip over the entire damn puzzle and just, like, use the back of it to, like, basically slingshot the ball off of it.
Nice.
Okay, they gave me no appreciation for Skyward Sword's motion controls.
Yeah.
Like, and these were downright unplayable in the Switch's portable mode because at a certain point you had to rotate it so you couldn't see the screen.
Right.
Yep.
So, like, I had to play those with the Pro Controller or the, like, Switch dog thing.
They,
Oh, wait, when you're doing it that way, do you just use, is it just the analog stick?
No, there's motion sensors built into the Pro Controller.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
It's like a PS4 pad.
Okay.
I didn't think that the controls were imprecise, except that there was a huge delay from when I tipped the thing in real life to when it tipped on screen.
Yeah, that's
and
what I was getting at.
Controller chucking frustrating.
Yes.
See,
Like, I dig what they were going for, right? Like, here's a little mini, that little labyrinth game we had when we were kids where you turn the knobs and tilted the thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It was a little mini one of those, and that's totally okay if it freaking works. but it didn't.
For me, I did not get the logic behind the physics of the motion controls. Like, I was just turning it and I'm like, I don't understand why it's turning this way. Like, I feel like it's just doing whatever it wants to, regardless of, like, where I turn. And, like, there's some kind of correlation between these two, but not enough that I can detect how I should be tilting this.
Right.
Every now and then I just get in that perfect spot and I'd be like, oh crap, I can't really press the button from here and I don't want to move it more. Like, I have to keep this really still while I reach my hand over to press the button to, like, get out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm beyond amazed that Nintendo is sticking with the motion controls and even, like, continued to put it into the Switch and everything like that. Like, not to get too, I mean, ARMS looks cool and everything like that, but when I see it, I'm just like, really, guys?
Well,
so a brief aside, I played ARMS with the motion and with regular controls. ARM is downright unplayable with the motion because you're using it for movement and punches, and you can't move your character like the way you want him to.
Interesting.
But it's a blast with the regular controls, but it is unplayable with the motion controls. But, on the other hand, I was playing Splatoon with motion controls, and I was just having one Joy-Con in each hand. I didn't, like, connect them onto the dog thing. And it was amazing. Like, my first thought is, I want a new Metroid Prime on this. with motion controls again. Or just put Metroid Prime Trilogy on here. I don't care. I just want this in HD on the Switch with these controls.
Yeah, Metroid Prime Trilogy, I know we're not talking about Metroid Prime Trilogy, but that with the pointer was a good time.
Yes.
I definitely enjoyed that. But yeah, I think that I think the reason they're sticking with motion controls so hard is because the Wii was such a success that they are terrified to move away from what they probably think made the Wii such a success.
Yeah.
Here's my theory, and this is just a theory. Mm-hmm. So, I think the Switch is going to be a super long haul system. Like, we might see upgrades of it, but they're going to be more like new 3DS more than an actual successor. So, once 2026 rolls around or so, there's going to be a lot of Wii nostalgia. And guess who's going to be there with the, like, kind of upgraded Wiimotes right out of the box to just take advantage of that seamlessly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I could see them, like, wanting to somehow implement either backwards compatibility or repackaged like big Wii and Wii U hits. I mean, they're already doing it with Wii U, but like Wii in particular, where here's Silent Hill Shattered Memories or Dead Space Extraction, and you can play it on your Switch because we still have motion controls, so you're good to go. But so we've talked a lot about the exploration and the gameplay and everything, and it's weird for me to even bring this up because it's Zelda, but like let's talk about the story, because I actually found the story to be I thought the story was pretty compelling.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not, it's very well documented on Nerds Without Pants. I am not the biggest Zelda fan. I kind of feel that like it's just rinse and repeat with the same like scenario every time. But I liked this idea, and I love to make fun of the Hyrule Historia thing where they're trying to shoehorn the entire series to make it connect. But if they want to use Breath of the Wild as like a springboard to try to connect them from here on, I think it works really well, because there's all of these like legends and little bits of Hyrule history and things that are throwbacks to older games and stuff, and little homages to things, and you can almost get this sense that this is a very old land, and a lot of stuff has come and a lot of stuff is coming, and it's hard to say where this actually fits. But if they want to say that everything spins out of here, or this is the end point, or not the end point, but like everything that happened before is funneling into this, and you're seeing a ruined Hyrule. I think that actually works pretty well, and I liked the idea of, well, it is kind of funny, like Link's been asleep for 100 years, and yet somehow everybody's still alive. And it's like, those are some long-lived races.
Well, actually, the only people that are still alive from the original are either ghosts, which means they're not alive actually, or they're magically like in some sort of stasis like Zelda herself is, or they are really old, like the people that are running the magical like laboratories. Those are some people that I think were alive back when Link was.
The King of the Zoras, the daughter of the
The King of the Zoras wasn't alive when Link was alive.
Yeah, he remembers him.
Doesn't he call the Zora Guardian like his daughter or something?
Oh.
Yeah. He remembers Link when he was alive. Yeah, and it's like
they might have abnormally long lives. Then I don't.
They would
know.
have to.
Like, they might be the elves of this particular universe.
Yeah.
Because there's even people who you'll see like old men, and they're like, "Oh, you look like someone that I remember a long time ago," and it's like, really? Like all these people remember this dude. I just thought it was kind of fun.
I just like the approach, though, that everything was just in place to finally take out Ganon, and you failed. And you failed because the special thing you needed to beat him, he turned against you. Yeah. Like with the Guardians.
Yeah.
So, I think the lore is interesting. I don't think the story is. I don't know if that makes sense. But like they do make it seem like there's one time where Zelda is literally making references to a bunch of other games, and it gives you this sense like she's giving some sort of a chant or some sort of a ceremony that she's talking about. I think it's when she's giving Link the sword or the tunic, and it makes it seem like something like you were saying, like these other games that she's talking about have somehow brushed paths with this universe, like they're in orbit around it somehow.
Yeah, it makes a lot of reference to this eternal struggle between Link and Zelda against Ganon. And that this is like some sort of ultimate version of him. And it's kind of cool that like he's not like he's just this monstrous form the whole time. He's not like transforming at the end or anything. Like you see, that this is like this monster that you have to take down.
He's been reincarnated like so many times, and like just coming back more corrupted than the last time. That this is like the end result.
Yeah,
right.
There's little left of him.
He does come back as Ganon, like the tusks and the snout, and the one from the very original Legend of Zelda, and from
Link to the Past.
Well, Link to the Past, was he Pig Ganon in that? I think so.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I had to think about that for a second. And I know he was in Twilight Princess. He was Pig Ganon too. Yeah, at the end you had to take him down with the.
Yeah,
he did.
I didn't really feel like that was pig. Felt like it was maybe a boar, but like some kind of animal hybrid.
Well, they're all boar Ganon.
But like with the other ones, it was more anthropomorphic. This one was more beast than man.
Right.
I prefer backgammon more than boargammon.
Or Borg, like he's trying to assimilate. Okay, anyway. We're really bad at this. So, I did like that. I enjoyed that. But I thought the story of the actual story that the game itself was telling, not the referential stuff or the lore it was like kind of hinting at but never really went into, it's kind of weak. Like, hey, we fought. It was cool, the whole setup. The setup was very cool. The payoff was non-existent. Like, you beat the game, and that's like there's no good. I don't feel like the plane really landed. Like, there's no real closure. I didn't feel like there was, or at least the closure wasn't dramatic enough to match all the setup that went before it.
Well, I feel like it kind of comes more together depending on how you fight Calamity Ganon, because I ended up using all of the powers you get from when you beat each of the Guardians. So, like, it was kind of like everyone's coming together to help me fight this fight. It just kind of felt epic that way. Like, actually, more things are coming together.
It's funny you mentioned that, and I haven't tried this again. But when I spawned into that specific section where you fight Calamity Ganon in boar form, I spawned with Zelda's horse, which is something I found as part of a side quest. And the very first thing that happened was Calamity Ganon stepped directly on my horse and killed it. So,
which horse?
I was like, well, I'm doing this on foot. You're going to die.
Wow.
But I wonder, it was almost like a fluke thing. Like, I paused the game. The kids were down here watching me finish up the game because they'd already finished it. And I paused the game because we all just started to laugh hysterically. They're like, I have never seen that. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I had about 2 seconds with the horse, and it just got killed.
That's hilarious. Like, I just figured you had to do it with the horse. And for me, I had not used horses for like 99% of the game because I just didn't like the way they felt. So I was like, oh crap, now I got to do horse combat. Like, this is going to suck.
There's so much stuff riding on horseback. Like, I get on a horse and I ride it for about 5 minutes. I'm like, ooh, something shiny. Off the horse I go. Exactly. And then I never see that again.
Yeah.
I barely used my horses, but I named them all after Robin Williams characters.
Oh, did you? I named all of mine after, I think I told you this, fast food.
Yeah.
And then when I got Princess Zelda's horse because it was white, I named it Nugs because it's all white meat.
Nice.
Yeah. I got a problem.
I feel like the only one of the Guardian characters that really stuck with me was the Rito one, because like he had like just much more of a character than the other ones. I felt like he was just this arrogant prick before, like acting so high and mighty, but then he fails and like he needs to just humble himself a little, saying like, I need your help, you're the chosen one, not me. I feel like the other ones just needed like some kind of quirk like that. Cause I didn't think they were bad. Well, like their interactions with Link were kind of interesting, but like they just they packed so much character into the one who got the least amount of time. Ironically,
Rivali, yeah. So I'm with you, and I mean I feel like there was I remember Rivali, and then hold on, I gotta think of their saying. Root was the other one. He was the Goron. And he was kind of like a coach figure, right? Like, he really came across like, hey, go get him, boy, you can do this. The one that I felt like, oh man, you are so onto something here, but there wasn't enough setup before it, was the Ruto. Or not the Ruto, the fish people?
Zora.
Oh, the Zora.
Zora, I'm sorry, Zora. So, there was this whole, like, I wanted there to be more chemistry between them, but Link doesn't talk. Like, Link isn't expressive enough to really get this whole sort of romantic connection. And man,
prove my point.
Well, okay.
Wind Waker Link would have been able to pull that off.
True.
Yeah. Something was really missing from that whole thing to make me care more about her. And I really wanted to care about her. That's the thing. I really wanted to, like, get this whole emotional attachment to her and feel And I did feel a little twinge of it, like, oh man, this is a tragedy. You know, she really loved him and he cared about her. I'm not really sure how, which is where it falls apart. Like, what's his side of this?
The thing is, they didn't need to have Link speak to do that work, but they just had him sit there through all of those. Like, they could have just had him do something that's just like this tiny gesture, but it just shows there is something between these two.
She was spending all this time making him armor.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there is something to that. Like,
Yeah,
all she wants to do is protect him and take care of him, and like in a very non-condescending way, I thought, in a very loving way, and it just fell flat because there was no reciprocation from his end.
Well, but I mean that's such a very like Japanese manga/anime thing, right? Like
Sick of that trope.
Well, but it is like she wants Senpai to notice her, but he never will because he's in love with Zelda. So there's always that character, and it's annoying. And in Japanese storylines, they never tell each other how they feel anyway. So nothing would ever happen there. Like if she actually did confess to him, he'd just be like, "Oh, this is I gotta go."
It's not like Persona where you can get 8 different girlfriends.
I understand that, but at the same time, is there really even so maybe there's chemistry between him and Zelda, because that still falls flat.
Yeah.
Like, that isn't delivered well either. In fact, I almost don't know if there is chemistry between Link and Zelda in these games, because there's never anything even implied in them, and maybe there is something lightly implied in this one, but if so, it's very lightly implied.
So just to, I know Casey hates it, but I will say that, like, at least in the beginning hours of Skyward Sword, I thought that there was some good chemistry between Link and Zelda in that game. Like, there was some good, like expressive facial expressions between the two, and you got the sense of, like, that he's kind of almost deer in the headlights with her. Like he's just very, over the moon for her in such a way that he he can't say anything.
No, I did. And you know what? That one was good. I agree with you.
They did have chemistry in it. It's just like, I didn't feel compelled in it because there wasn't much compelling from a gameplay standpoint through all the time they're there together. And then when they keep reuniting, all you keep is hearing like, "Oh, you didn't do your job. You're not worthy of being like titled the hero." And I'm just, it really took out the satisfaction of being in the dungeon. So like, I was just focusing on other things.
Well, that was mostly Rivali that was like that. He was kind of the obnoxious one. And a little bit of the, I keep forgetting the desert people's name. Gerudo. She was the weakest one by far.
Yeah.
I don't know what her, I don't remember her at all. I remember the dungeon more than I remember her.
Which is a shame because I feel the Gerudo have the most personality as a people.
Well, those are Ganon's people. Races. Like, there's something to that as well.
And real quick, like, I thought that was there's a nice little subtle bit of dialogue where she says, "I heard that he came from our tribe, and so I've got a personal stake in this." And it's just this nice little throwback to, like, those older games again, but it's not like in your face or anything. It's like, oh, okay, I dig that.
I think that was a mistake, though. I think play that up. I think let her come out of the gate with that motivation and then build on it. Make her so angry that she is giving her tribe this a corrupt reputation. And maybe even play that into the game a little bit. Like, hey, there's this whole sort of kind of silly side part about all these Gerudo women trying to find men and having a difficult time of it. But maybe play that up. Maybe make the men scared of them because, hey, these are the people that Ganon came from. They could have done so much with this, and it didn't really happen.
Angelo, I actually did find this side quest where that exact thing happens. Like, this Gerudo wants to find a man to be with, and then you just find this guy, like, who has a chance, but she's just not attracted to him at all because he's so intimidated of her, and you just have to kind of, like, do all this stuff to set them up together. You
have to give him a bunch of flowers and stuff. I think I did that one too, yeah. The motivation should be that these people are scary, these people are evil, these are Ganon's people. Like, that wowould be... And then she's just so angry about all that, but none of that happened. Like, it's right there in front of you. You just had to, like... Oh.
I mean, this may be an unpopular opinion, but I think that's asking a lot of a Nintendo created storyline, because I don't think that it's rare that they go that deep, and I wish they would, for sure. I'm on your side. And again, like, I am total Team Link should talk, because I think that you can get a lot more personality out of the character that way. I at least appreciated in Breath of the Wild that you have usually a multitude of choices for him, and you can kind of decide what type of Link you want him to be. Like, he can be a little snarkier or a little more heroic and stuff like that. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Best characters in the franchise are from Skyward Sword. You're right. Like, as I think of these characters and these iterations of these characters, gameplay and other things aside,
I'm like thinking of the characters too. I didn't really like Skyward Sword's characters. The only one I really liked that much was the scientist Goron, just because it's like that's kind of neat. Like we haven't really seen a scientist Goron before. But like in terms of side characters, I'd take Majora's Mask or Wind Waker's any day over Skyward Swords.
Well, I think Angelo's talking about like Link and Zelda, right? Like you're talking about like more of the main characters, or
well, Link, Zelda, and who is Link's rival in that? Like that
Bruce.
was one time where the rival trope was so well played. Like you ended up actually liking him.
I didn't like Bruce.
Maybe it didn't land for you. It landed for me. I liked it.
Like all I could think is they are trying so hard to copy Biff Tannen, it's not even funny.
Well, yeah, but in the end, he becomes so sympathetic. Like you realize he's just this pathetic guy, and he really isn't even a good Biff Tannen. Like he's not badass enough. Not badass.
No, Biff Tannen isn't badass. Every single one of those movies has him drive into a truck full of shit.
He's a clown. He's an absolute clown. But the thing is, he's a bigger asshole. Like Biff Tannen is. He was more of a bully, but he wasn't really, like, a complete jackass.
Well, I'm talking about, like, pure teenage Biff, not, like, the Back to the Future, but that's, like, a different... I don't want to get too sidetracked.
Oh, yeah, we are. To bring it back, supposedly, and you mentioned that you named a bunch of Robin Williams stuff in there.
Yeah.
Unlike the Iwata stuff, if there is a Robin Williams tribute in there, it's more subtle. I have a couple of theories, one that's going around the internet and one that I haven't seen yet. But one is that they found an NPC that sort of looks like Robin Williams, and I think that's it.
Yeah, I've seen those pictures.
But the other one is, so there's the two scientists, right? There's the female one and the male one. The male one is really eccentric and really weird and really out there, and his name is freaking Robbie. Like, I wonder if that's him.
Yeah, maybe that's also a reference to Flubber.
It could be.
Yeah, I mean, he was a pretty good ambassador for that game. I mean, he named his daughter Zelda. And they actually did, I forget which game it was, but they actually talked to them in like an interview style. I feel like maybe before Skyward Sword came out.
It was Ocarina of Time 3D. They did a commercial where he was just playing with his daughter.
Yeah. So
that was adorable. I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of Nintendo's best commercials.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where do we want to go from here as far as Zelda? Like, do you want every Zelda to be this format, like, for the foreseeable future? Because keep in mind that, like, Ocarina of Time pretty much dictated Zelda for 18 years, not counting the portable games, but, like, they've basically been doing that formula for every major Zelda game until now. So, do we want that for the next 18 years?
I don't think the next 18 years, but what I do want is the next game to just take this basic structure and just like beef out the combat a little more, like what Julian was saying, like give more options to it, and then give dungeons on par with Twilight Princesses. Because I felt the dungeons weren't as strong. I really liked the ideas behind them. You have these steampunk animal machines, and each one of them is built around their own gimmick where you have to manipulate something about them.
That was cool.
But I wanted them to be bigger.
Yeah, I felt they were very
too
small. I solved most of them pretty quickly. And also, like, they all look the same, you know, because they're basically the same architecture. So I want those in there, but I wish that there had been traditional dungeons on top of that. Like maybe 10 of the shrines or 8 of the shrines in addition to the dungeon, in addition to the guardian beasts were more typical dungeons. I was really missing that. I was also missing, I felt that, the boss battles of the guardian beasts were really weak. I didn't find them interesting at all. And one of them, I didn't even find the trick to beat it. I just killed it.
Yeah. I got so powerful that the last two I just brute force. I didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
The Master Sword was so easy.
I was not that big a fan of the bosses, but I did think they were improvement over the regular Zeldas because they actually felt like a fight and not just find the weak point, hit 3 times.
Of And maybe there could be a good like melding of that, like make it, you know, like take some of what we've learned from like, you know, Dark Souls and some of like those platinum character action games and stuff like that, but integrate that Zelda puzzle element of it, and then somewhere in the middle is like this genius, you know, like melding of the two.
I think there's a middle ground. Like the last thing I want is Link to turn into Bayonetta. I love Bayonetta.
Yeah.
But I don't want that for Zelda.
No, I definitely want the combat to be weightier. You know, again, like, I really think Dark Souls is a great example. Like I want to be rolling. I want to get better at the defense, but also, like, timing swings, you know, like putting a lot of impact between each attack and making it feel weighty and powerful. Like, I think that would be really cool.
I think Nintendo really needs to look towards Bloodborne for the combat, because that just, like, it has a pace I associate more with Zelda than Dark Souls.
Sure.
Dark Souls is, like, a lot slower than Zelda. But I think, like, the next one has this structure, but then Bloodborne combat, that might be the best game ever made. Because right now, this is my favorite Nintendo game, period.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I like, you know what? And if this, for people who were, I could see this definitely being somebody's favorite Nintendo game. It's not mine. Yeah. I don't think it's my favorite Zelda game. I do think it is my favorite open world game.
Yes.
Yeah.
By many, many, many miles.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, you are talking to the person who is in love with Morrowind and is still in love with Morrowind. And I don't know if it will ever, because I mean, that was my first, right? But man, this is so good.
I don't think I can go back to Far Cry with Far Cry 5 after this.
Nope.
I'm going to have
Far Cry 3.
When Shadow of War comes out this year, it's going to be difficult for me, because that was my favorite open world game up until Breath of the Wild. And it's going to be rough.
I have not played Shadow of Mordor yet, and I am still going to play it, but I don't think I also have, like, sort of an amount of time I can spend exploring a world, right? And once I've done an open world game, especially if I do this 100-hour thing like I did with this one, once I really sink my teeth into one, I don't want to spend that much time exploring another open world game for years.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't say years for me, but it's definitely months. Like,
I just can't get that sucked unless it's really good. I can get that, like, really, well, maybe not years, but, like, this will be mine for this year. Right. I will not want to play another one until next year. I really wanted to give, Horizon Zero Dawn a shot, and literally all of the excitement I had for that game is gone. I don't know how else to explain it, and I know that's not fair to the game. It's just not, because it's not trying to be this. But at the same time, I just don't want that anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard a lot of people saying that as much as they love Horizon Zero Dawn, they're trying to climb on everything and they can't. And that might be the one thing where it's like, guys, if you're, well, and I've said this for years, because, like, Infamous 1 did this for me, where, like, once I was able to shimmy up the sides of buildings with his like parkour climbing, I was like, guys, you need to have like really good ways to get around buildings and stuff, because, you know, just walking around them or driving in cars ain't gonna cut it anymore. And then Saints Row 4 lets you super jump over them.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, seriously, guys, like every open world game needs to have like really good ways of traversal.
Well, I just remember when Assassin's Creed was first announced, like, I just had so many ideas of what it could do with this. And Breath of the Wild is all those ideas that I had in my head. Because, like, Assassin's Creed just limited itself with what you could climb. I didn't even realize that until I played Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. And, you know, I will say that, like, I think that Link's initial stamina is way too low. Like, I think that it should be, like, at least, like, half a bar above what it is at the starting point, just to be, like, enjoyable. Because, like, those first couple hours, I was not having a good time. And I literally was seeking out shrines just to get stamina. And it got to the point where, like, by the time I found the Master Sword, I was done with shrines. I was tired of them. I had like 40 something done, but I wasn't strong enough to take the sword out, so I had to go look specifically for shrines. And I was like, this is the last thing that I want to do right now, guys. And so as soon as I got strong enough to pull the sword, I was like, all right, let's go.
As far as where I want the series to go from here, this is going to sound a little interesting, maybe a little unexpected coming from me. Let's go back to Kid Link. I want to see Kid Link again. And I'll tell you what else I want to do, and this is going to kind of go a little more towards Julian's side of this, and this kind of goes along with Kid Link because it makes sense. Let's ditch spears and greatswords, okay? And let's refine sword and board combat. Let's make that a little more interesting, right? Maybe give me a shield bash move that will let me stun enemies for a quick second. Or give me a couple other things to kind of move around in there. Now, I don't know if this is going to be what everybody wants, but I didn't find much use for anything but the short swords and the shield. Like, I felt like I always wanted to roll with that.
Oh, interesting, because I actually found the spears to be super useful.
They're weak.
They're weak, but the poking moves are really good. And then I don't know if you ever tried charging up with the spears.
Yeah.
My thing was, they were perfect for throwing.
What I would find myself doing with spears is I would keep elemental spears. Because they were great for just, you run up to somebody and you stab them, and you get the elemental effect. You either freeze them or you stun them. And then I would have just really strong, single-handed weapons for doing the combo after I stunned them. Great swords were kind of like, I'm just kind of like giving you what my thoughts were after playing the game. I was thinking, I thought the same thing, like, where do we go from here? Ditch the shrine concept, okay? I like it, but you cannot do that twice in a row.
Definitely.
It's like the weapon writing in Link Between Worlds.
Yeah. Instead, let's do more bigger dungeons. So, you explore a lot of the overworld. And hide stuff all over the overworld. Give me a couple of little caves with neat stuff in it. But let's not do shrines anymore. Instead, give me an actual dungeon. Give me a crafted experience. And give me about 10 or 15 of them. Right?
And still have, like, all kinds of stuff to discover, but make it more like Link Between Worlds, where, like, you're just discovering all these tiny mini areas.
Yeah.
And they all have, like, some kind of prize for you, and that prize goes towards some upgrade that legitimately helps you out. Because that's what makes that game work so well, is, like, everywhere you go, there's some kind of benefit to what you find. Like, real benefit that you'd, like, go out of your way to look for.
Yep. Come up with different Sheikah Slate abilities. Bombs have to stick around because Zelda. But maybe we don't have to do Magnesis again. Maybe we don't have to do Stasis again. Maybe we could come up with something a little more interesting.
I want to keep Stasis just because of all the possibilities it gave us. Like, you've seen, like, the guy chops down a tree, like, puts it in stasis, while it's tipping over, and then just, like, whacks it a bunch of times, hits it with an arrow to give it, like, a proper direction, then jumps on it and just shooting like a rocket.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen amazing things. My kid was doing stuff on accident with a raft one time while we were recording, and I'm just looking at him like, you are destroying this game, and it's amazing. The two other things are, please tighten up the inventory system. I mean, these are just quality of life improvements. I mean, you can tell that they had, you can tell that they did not design this for the Switch. It was designed for the Wii U. It was designed for the tablet interface, and they had all sorts of stuff that they scraped out that is nowhere near more obvious anywhere else in the game than it is with the actual user interface.
Well,
right?
And even like if that stuff was still available on the Wii U, it's still missing like very key features like sorting and you know, like a recipe thing where you can like I want like a thing that says, hey, I want to make a recipe that does this. What ingredients do I have that'll give me this? And then just do that.
Once you discover a recipe, have the game freaking record it.
Exactly.
Somehow, anywhere, please. Why did you make this stupid decision? Like, what do you expect me to do? Write all this down? This isn't 98. I have a freaking computer that I'm doing this on, for goodness sake. It's capable of this.
Another thing I want is the hookshot back.
Yep.
Because I was just like thinking of all the possibilities you could have with the hookshot and this climbing mechanic.
I wanted to straight up like Batman myself off of something, shoot myself into the air and glide down. I wanted that so bad.
The glider, just want to bring that up because that is really what keeps this game together, like the glue that holds it together, because you get to this high up area, you get to like see all the places you can go to, you like pick out where you want it, and it's like, I'm gonna go down there right now. You don't even need to like put all that effort into climbing down, being careful. You just glide.
Yeah. Especially when you get up to a really tall place, do Rivali's Gale and then glide, and it's just like just like you can just go forever. Like you're like, oh, midway through I'm running out of stamina, I'll just eat on the flight and I'm just good to go.
Also, please do something about the rain.
Oh yeah.
Because that's not okay.
Yeah.
I can't be freaking max level, all stamina, everything, and be like, oh, I'm gotta wait because I can't climb this cliff right now. And I could Rivali's Gale my way halfway up it, but once I do and I try to grab it, I'm just gonna slide all the way down. Mm-hmm. So what's the point? I guess I'll make a campfire, and oh wait, you can't make a campfire in the rain, so I'm literally sitting on my hands. Yeah. This is stupid.
Only have it rain when there's a purpose like that. Shrine I was talking about earlier where you need to have lightning strike.
Right. Or there's just like when you're approaching the Zora area and, you know, it is raining for a story reason and they want to keep you on a very specific path. That's fine. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
But times where I'm in the middle of scaling this mountain and I have to wait on a cliff that is just big enough to fit my character for that stupid thing to move on for 2 entire notches because for some reason it's raining for 2 notches in a row. My gosh! I'm just gonna go eat dinner. I'll be back.
Well, you know, for me, like, this is very close to what my dream Zelda game would be. It's got some issues that prevent it from being that. So like I said before, like, I would definitely want to see the combat fleshed out more. Honestly, Angelo, I think they should keep the extra weapons, because I thought that was a really cool addition, not having to stick with just, like, Link's handy sword and shield. I mean, that's my preferred way of playing, but, you know, having other weapons, like, that feel differently and play differently, I think is really cool.
Let me just kind of clarify that a little bit. Like, part of the thing is, I think the durability system worked great in this game, but I don't necessarily think we need to see that again.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, for me, it didn't work, and that needs to be chunked out, because you get to a point where, or at least for me, I was like, I've got, like, 6 weapons here that are really cool, and I don't want to waste them. But, and it's like, instead of having that, like, let's have a lot of weapons in the game, and maybe early ones do break. But then you get some, you know, later on, it's like, well, this is made out of steel, this isn't gonna break. You know, but then you get this situation where you're getting cooler looking stuff and more powerful weapons, but it's like, hey, I went through this really tough quest, and I got this awesome flame sword. This is my flame sword. You know, and it's gonna be my flame sword until the end of the game, until I find something better. You know, like, there's something for that.
My idea is more like give you one weapon for like each classification, but then maybe give runes. Like you have a fire rune, a thunder rune, and you can equip them to that weapon, and you just like upgrade your weapons in all these crazy ways that way, and that's how they improve. Like more of an upgrade system to the weapons.
Yeah, I guess I would be down for that if they also would change appearance as you upgrade them, because I'm very big on aesthetics. So like, You know, and I've said this on like my Final Fantasy like wish list is that I want to see my characters in like Final Fantasy 16 sporting really cool armor and weapons that are visible on the characters instead of the crappy like buttons and zippers and Bermuda shorts that Nomura's going to design. Like I want to see them. I want to see them look cool.
Well, when I say that, I mean like upgrade all kinds of stuff too, like your sword hilt, your blade itself. You're getting all these different upgrades, and some of like they're just getting better and better as they go along until all of a sudden you got this crazy sword that has all these kinds of crazy runes in it.
Yeah, I like that.
What if they did a system like they did in what was that PlayStation Squaresoft game?
Vagrant Story?
Vagrant Story, yeah. What if they did something like that?
Yeah, that'd work.
How cool would that be?
Yeah.
I would be down with that.
So, I'm also with Angelo as far as ditching the shrines. I think you go back to traditional dungeons, and I'm gonna reiterate what I'd said back on that episode when we were designing our favorite Zelda game. But I would like to see the overworld, open world like this one was, but then the underworld be a series of interconnected dungeons that flow into each other, but they're gated by abilities or item sets. So you can get from like dungeon A to dungeon C, but there's going to be like a shortcut that you have to get through, you know, possibly by doing dungeon B or something like that. And I would actually bring back like a lot of the tried and true Zelda items, but make it more of a, you know, exploration, you know, in the vein of like Metroid or Batman Arkham Asylum or the Tomb Raider from 2013, where as you're getting this new gear, you know, you're able to explore a little bit more of the map. But that would apply to the underworld, not necessarily overworld, where the overworld would definitely be more of like, go anywhere that you want, you know, find all these weird things, all of these neat side quests and stuff like that Angelo combed the desert for and I didn't see. Oh, okay, I will say, I want to tell my one little story about like Zelda exploration, because I don't have a lot like you guys. But it was in the Gerudo Desert, and there was a part where like I noticed this statue, and it had like a sword, and it was pointing.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, that's interesting. And also you could take the sword. And I took the sword, and I was like, I don't know if I should have done that. But I went in that direction, and I found another statue pointing in a different direction. So I went in that direction. I kept following it, but eventually I got into a situation where there was a terrible sandstorm, couldn't see anything on the map, didn't know where I was going, and I was like, well, I've come this far, I'm just going to keep going forward. And I kept going forward, and again, just like in all aspects of Breath of the Wild, I was rewarded with a shrine, but also the skeleton of one of the Leviathans that you're supposed to find for a side quest.
Yeah.
And guys, I want to fight a Leviathan. Like, if there's DLC where you get to fight one of those suckers, then I would probably get the DLC, because that thing was freaking massive. And how can you like dangle that in front of me and be like, oh, well, they're extinct, so you never get to see one, but look at this skeleton, though.
That was the only Leviathan skeleton I actually found. I didn't find any of the other ones.
Me too.
Here's another thing I want in the next Zelda, and I've wanted this in Zelda for a while, but have the tutorial be you're in this town that gets overrun by all these monsters they've taken over, and that's the first dungeon. Yeah. But then, like, once you're done, it's a town.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
And you're finding, like, not all the items there, but a good chunk of items. Just so, like, you have a bunch of cool stuff to get used to there. And, like, you have, like, a good amount of freedom once you're out. Like, not total. Like, there's still some items you need to find in the overworld, but... Because I did want to find some items that just open up a new area. Like, they would be more... And not just increasing my stamina, and I can climb this place now.
Yeah, and you know, there's something to be said about some of those iconic items and weapons that allow you to do some really cool things. Like, I'm thinking of, like, the ones that you could rent in A Link Between Worlds. And so, yeah, like, you kind of got everything without really having to earn it if you wanted. But at the same time, they would open up these really cool possibilities. So I definitely would like to go back to that. And also, like, I'm going to say it, like, I want The Legend of Link starring Zelda. Like, I think it's time. let's have her atone for Zelda's adventure on the CDI. like it's time for her to have a proper game.
And I'm not sure if it's one Gamelon or the other one, but there's like that other one where it was like Link, Adventure of Link, but you play as Zelda.
Well, no, it's Zelda's Adventure is that it?
The top-down one.
It's
Zelda's
actually
Adventure is the top-down one.
Yeah.
But then the ones with those horrid cartoon cutscenes, there's like one where you play as Link and one where you play as Zelda.
Oh, I thought it was Link in both of them.
No, one you play as Zelda.
Okay.
It's like Adventure of Link.
Yeah. Those are bad games.
They really are.
Like, Nintendo just wants so bad for everyone to forget about them.
Yeah, that was a really bad deal that they made. Also, Hotel Mario.
Here's an idea. Okay, so here's the thing. And this is just me spitballing here. What if there was a Zelda game where you could play as either one or the other, but they use different weapons?
I like it.
So, like, instead of Link would have a sword and shield, but Zelda would just use a rapier, and she would parry very easily, or something like that. That'd be pretty.
Zelda's more magic focused.
More magic focused. Her arrows, she might be better at firing arrows as well. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm down for that.
I'm for all of that. So,
making 2-player co-op too.
And
I'm
then
not
a
down
new
for
game
that.
plus where you can play as Ganon.
I've always had an idea for a game where Link and Ganon start out as friends, and then, like, basically Ganon ends up being jealous of Link because Link is, like, part of, like, the Hyrule upper crust society, and Ganon is, like, a lowly serf or something like that. And so that leads to, like, Ganon becoming the bad guy because he's basically trying to, like, raise his station in life and like, rebel against this aristocracy that's kept him down, like his whole family down and stuff like that.
I'm not a fan of Ganon itself, but I'm down for that idea, but, like, maybe Ganon's right-hand man doing that. I like just this more idea of Link and Ganon are always going to be clashing till the end of time. Like,
Sure.
There's not even, like, a moment where they aren't.
Yeah. I just feel that, like, that's been done for 30 years, and so it'd be interesting to turn it on its side a little bit. Because at the end of the day, they would still be, like, fighting till the end of the time. It's just, like, for a brief moment, like, they were childhood friends.
I just, like Mario RPGs do the whole Bowser fights with you thing, and I think that just takes away from making Bowser, like, an unstoppable force, and I just want Ganon to stay that unstoppable force.
Oh, well, see, like, I used to read the Mario World Japanese comic from, like, Nintendo Power, so for me, Bowser has always been, like, just a lovable oaf, because, like, in that comic, he's just the bumbliest of bumblers, and, like, there's nothing imposing about him whatsoever.
See, I like bumbling Bowser, but I wasn't introduced to him until Superstar Saga, which was, like, in 2003, so I had played Mario World, Mario Brothers 3, Mario 64, all while just thinking of Bowser as this giant beast you have to overcome. And then Superstar Saga comes out, it's like, oh no, he's kind of a joke. Like, this villain just loads him in his cannon and shoots him out for fun.
Yeah, I still remember, like, images of him, like, waiting very nervously for Peach to, come to the wedding that he had, because he was going to marry her, and he's getting, like, pre-wedding jitters and stuff like that, and he's, like, it's a really good comic. Like, I still own it. Like, I actually have the trade paperback for it. But we should wrap this up, but I wanted to get, like, closing thoughts from everybody before we close this sucker down. Angelo, I will start with you.
Oh boy. I don't know if you could tell. I really like this one. I don't put 100+ hours into a game unless I love it, and I would definitely say I love this game. Will not, and it has not and will not supplant A Link to the Past as my favorite Zelda. But I want to go back and my kid has the guidebook, and I think now that I'm done exploring on my own, I kind of want to crack that thing open and, like, say, okay, what did I miss? How do I get it? Because I give up.
Right.
Okay, I give up. Let's figure out the stuff I missed just to get it. and maybe see if the ending's a little different. I'll tell you what I'm not doing is getting all the Korok seeds, because that's a fool's errand.
Yeah.
That's just insanity.
Even with a guide telling you where they are and how to get them, that's insane.
That's more nuts than catching every Pokemon.
Yeah, but man, good job. Not a game I expected from Nintendo. A game I was worried about the more they talked about it prior to it coming out, and man, I like being surprised by good games. I feel like I get surprised by bad games more often than I do by good, but I'm very happy to be surprised by an excellent game this time around. So more of this, please. Metroid next, maybe.
Casey, how about you?
I really haven't enjoyed a game this much since Mass Effect 2. Like, I was just in love from the second I saw Link has a jump button. That's kind of funny. I was playing that part with my bud, and his girlfriend just comes in, and we're just flipping out that Link has a jump button, and she's just looking at us like we're nuts. We're just trying to explain, no, this is a big freaking deal.
Yeah, he has had a jump button since Link's Awakening.
Oh, yeah.
No, the Oracle games,
Oh, yeah, that's right. You get the feather in one of those, didn't you?
Oh, and in the Miniscap.
Did you get feather?
You have the Rocks Cake. That's the last dungeon. Yeah, before the end of it.
Okay,
but,
my bad.
Yeah, like, I was putting in, like, an average of 6 hours a day for 10 days after I got this game. I could not put it down. I was just in love. Like, there were bumps. Like, I had my own gripes I mentioned here, but they didn't get in the way and, like, much at all, and I was just in love with that sense of discovery. I hadn't really felt a game give just, like, this kind of magical feeling of discovering something in such a long time. And I think the internet in a lot of ways killed that, but this kind of, like, brought it back in its own way. And it was just the perfect game to start out a Switch with.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had a lot of issues with it, and they actually did keep me from enjoying it thoroughly. Like, I got to a point partway through where I was avoiding as much combat as I could. But the discovery and just the way that the world unfolds that's what kept me going. And, you're right on the money there, Casey. It was almost like everybody on the internet kind of made a pact to not spoil this game. Right? Like, unless you were going out of your way to find it, like you were going to certain forums or you were listening to certain podcasts who were like, hey, we're going to spoil this now, right now. Otherwise, people were keeping mum on everything. And it was like, again, going back to like those old Nintendo Power days where it's this weird arcane way of discovering the game. And it really made me miss working at Game Fellas, because this would have been a game where we would have all been talking like after we closed the store about, oh, did you get this? Oh, no, I didn't see that. I'm going to go do that tonight. Like, that type of stuff is what I loved about working at that store so much. And, so, like, it's nice that we can get together and do this, because I haven't had anybody that I can talk to about it, without spoiling anything. And I didn't want to do that for Angelo for sure. So it's nice to get together and be able to say this. And, like I said, I'm not the biggest Zelda fan. This is only the 4th Zelda game that I've finished out of the 11 that I've played. But like Casey, I would play this in really large chunks, and I don't do that very often anymore. I think my shortest play time was like 2 hours in a stint, but I was averaging like 5 to 6 hours, and it's rare that I play a game for that long a period of time. I think Mass Effect Andromeda pulled me in a little bit, but that was more out of spite than necessarily enjoyment. It was like, there's good in here and I can find it. Like, it's just like Darth Vader. I can sense the light in this game somewhere. I just need to bring it back out. But Zelda, it was the real deal where, there was always something around the next corner. And that's really what kept me moving through the game. And, also, like, we didn't really say it, but it's a beautiful game. It's another one of those things where, like, the draw distance is so good. Like really, like, you get on top of a mountain and you're just, okay, I can see that. Because I would do that thing where I'd put a pin on something and then realize, oh, that's like 2 zones away. Like, it was really far.
it's another thing real quick, but just like you're talking about, like, you will be sitting there, this happened to me, just sitting there looking at the game, like I'm just looking at the skybox, or I'm looking at those mountains in the distance. This is amazing. And then all of a sudden a shooting star goes by, and I'm like, huh, that landed. I saw that land. I should check that out. And sure enough, if you do that, there's something there waiting for you. I'm like, every single thing in this game has meaning, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually why I don't want Nintendo to stop making hardware, because they just know their tech so well and just do all these tricks no one else can do with a system that equally powerful. Like,
Yeah.
no one else is going to make a game with that kind of draw distance on the Switch.
True.
Hell, a lot of PS4 and Xbox One games won't be able to do that.
Dude, it had that draw distance in the Wii U.
Yeah.
The Wii U has no power. Yeah, and it looked great on that system. Fantastic. I just would watch the sunset every once in a while, just go down, and it was perfect. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I was going to say that I would love to see what Nintendo could do with like an actual like top of the line powerful system, but then again, I don't trust them with Unreal Engine 4. So you're right, Casey. Like it's a fool's errand to want them to go that level, because I don't think that they would actually know what to do with it. So I think they're good when they're constrained.
Yeah, I think like the games we're getting from them now, they're like, this is their biggest, most ambitious game yet. And the games they're making, they don't need all this extra power. It would really just be a prettier game at the end of the day. But they're making games that feel just as much, if not more polished than anything you're getting on those other systems. So, like, they know what to do with less powerful hardware. And it's a lot less noticeable with this tech than it was with the Wii, because there still was like a giant bump, but these bumps in hardware just mean less and less with each new gen, because they wouldn't have been able to pull the underpowered system off with if it was PS1 and 64 power against PS2 and Xbox.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the Wii, the problem there was that it was a standard definition console in an HD world, so that it was glaring there. So now that you've at least got it in HD, like, so it's going to look nice on any television that you can put it on. That's all.
I think the Wii's real biggest issue was just it didn't have enough buttons.
No. I would buy a Skyward Sword remake if they did it right.
Yeah.
I think that game deserves another shot.
Yeah. The thing is, I've been testing the Switch's motion sensors. Like, it's not that, like, when I mentioned Breath of the Wild and ARMS didn't have good motion controls on it, but it's more just the way they were programmed, or maybe they were just asking too much out of it. But when, like, these things are just so much more accurate than the Wii was, even with Wii Motion Plus. So I would actually be down for Skyward Sword HD on the Switch, or Deluxe.
See, I didn't have any problems with the motion controls on Skyward Sword. It was the glacial pace of the game and Fee telling me how to save my game and treating me like an infant.
That was more my issue too. I mean, just tighten up the overall experience. And I didn't have as many problems as a lot of people had. Wow. I did not have the problems a lot of other people claimed to have with the sword controls, but I will say that every once in a while, when I really needed them to work, they just decided not to. So that was a problem. Like, it has to be consistent at the very least.
And I didn't think even that would be acceptable, because I had a ton of issues with the motion controls on my Wii. But even like what you're describing, that's like unacceptable when the game relies so hard on being so accurate with its controls.
Yeah.
But Breath of the Wild, freaking awesome.
Yes, it was.
Good job. If you ever decide to revisit this, please clean up the UI. That's my only request. That's the only thing that really needs to change, in my opinion.
I think other things need to change, but that's I've said my piece.
I mean, as far as just looking at it and going, you guys made a mistake.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we've all said our piece about Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. That's going to do it. Casey, thanks for joining us. I'm glad that we could have the person who reviewed the game on this episode.
Yeah. And go ahead and pick some and check out my review.
Yeah, check out Casey's review. Definitely let us know in the comments, like, your thoughts on the game. I mean, it's a free-for-all. This is the spoiler cast, so, let her rip in the comments. Let us know, like, everything that you thought about it, good or bad. I mean, you probably already did that on Casey's review, but, we probably brought up some things maybe you didn't think about before, or things that you disagree with or agree with. Probably everybody disagrees with everything that I said, but that's okay. We're actually recording this before E3, but it's coming out after E3. And then I think we're changing our recording schedule. So things are going to be like really Nerds Without Pants heavy for a little bit, but then we'll get back into our normal swing of things. So I apologize if we're inundating you with a lot of content, but it'll normalize here in about a month. So as always, we really appreciate everybody who listens and comments and shares the show and all that good stuff. So thank you, everybody. You can always find us on Twitter. Casey.
Officer Meeseeks.
Angelo.
I'm at a roguish hand.
You can find me at Julian_Titus. You can always find the show at NWPcast. So for myself, Casey, and Angelo, thanks for listening, and keep it pantsless, Internet. Goodbye.
Did you see the latest Nintendo newsletter?
Whoa, nice graphics. I'd like to get my hands on that game.
You mean you haven't played it yet? We can play it on my Nintendo Entertainment System. It's the Legend of Zelda, and it's really rad. Those creatures from Ganon are pretty bad. Octoroks, Tektites, Levers, too. But with your help, our hero pulls through. Yeah, go Link. Yeah, get Zelda. Awesome. Intense.
The Nintendo Entertainment System. Your parents help you hook it up. The Legend of Zelda sold separately.
Excuse me, princess.